Hey guys, I'm John Setzler. Welcome back to Atlanta Grill Company. Today I want to show you how to prep and cook a rack of St. Louis cut pork spare ribs. So let's get started. I'm going to get started. We're going to prep this rack. I've got a full rack here of pork spare ribs that hasn't been cut down. We're going to turn this into a St. Louis cut, and I'm going to show you how we do that. I'm going to start here on the back side, and there's this skirt piece here that I'm going to trim off. Just kind of trim this excess. This is actually kind of hard to grab with a glove. I'm going to get all that out of there. The next thing we're going to do is get this silver skin off. And what I want to do is come down here to the end to one of the bones. And I want to get my knife up under there. About like that, where I can get up under with a paper towel. And then when you get that started, you can get a good grip on it here with a piece of paper towel, and usually you can pull that off in one piece if you're lucky. So we're gonna, well, I'm not gonna get this one in a single piece, but we're gonna get a good bit of it. I should have just gloved up both hands here. We're gonna get that all off. I'm gonna come back here and get the rest of this. And then once I've got all my silver skin off, we're ready to move on to the next step. And we're gonna trim this guy down. And the first thing I wanna do is come out here to the small end and square this off. And usually what I'm gonna do to square mine off here is take off the last two bones, and we're going to set that aside. And then we're going to flip this guy over, and what we're going to do now is take off what's called the rib tips. We're going to come right up here. I'm going to trim some of this excess fat off down here on the top of that also, but we have a little line right here, so what I'm going to do is come right down that line, and we're going to square this guy off. And this is a fairly decently trimmed rack of St. Louis cut pork spare ribs. These rib tips, you don't want to throw that out either. I often like to throw this on the grill, season that up, and let it cook, and that kind of becomes a pitmaster snack. So I've got a second rack of these that I'm going to get prepped, and then we'll be back. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prep my ribs with my rub, and today I'm using the Man Cave Meals AP Mojo from Atlanta Grill Company, but I have this mixed 50-50 with the AP Mojo and the Pork Mojo, and I'm just going to put a nice liberal coat of that on the back side of these ribs. I'm not using any binder. You can use a binder if you like, but I'm just going to give this a few minutes to stick, then we're going to flip it over and do the other side. And after that's had a couple of minutes there to bind, I'm going to flip that over, and we're going to hit the top side with the same amount of rub. And if you're ever wondering how much rub you want to put on a rack of ribs, I treat these guys the same way I would treat a butt. I want to put enough rub on there that it's thick enough that I can't see the meat through the rub. So that looks good. So what I'm going to do now is give that about 10 minutes to bind up on there. It'll naturally bind. It'll start drawing the moisture fairly quickly. And at this point, you've got two options. You can either go straight to the grill with it, or, as you know what I like to do, I'm going to put this in a vacuum seal bag, let it ride in the refrigerator overnight to let the salt and spices here go to work on the meat, and we're going to come back cook these tomorrow. We're going to get this rib cook started. I have put my SLoROLLER in the Classic 3, and I've built the fire in the firebox, so I'm going to set the top piece on the SLoROLLER. I'm going to set both halves of my grill grate on the top rack here, and I'm going to close the dome, and we're going to use the Fireboard 2 to run the grill today. And I'm going to run the grill down around 225, so I'm going to close this top vent up most of the way. And I'm going to kick the Fireboard in to run the grill at 225, so we're going to give this guy a little bit of time to preheat. My Classic 3 is up to temp, so I'm going to crack that open, and we're going to put both racks of these ribs right up here on the top rack. And I'm going to close this guy up. We're going to let this smoke for about 3 hours, or maybe, let's say, we're going to go 2.5. No, we're going to go 3 hours at 225. We're going to do a modified version of a 3-2-1 method, so we'll be back to see these in 3 hours. While that's cooking, I'd just like to take a moment here to ask you for your support. If you're watching this video on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button and then click the bell icon to get an alert each time we post a new video. If you're watching on Facebook, how about giving us a thumbs up or share the video if you think it's worth seeing? Your support will help us keep these channels going. We've been going about 2 hours and 40 minutes here, and these ribs, they're looking really nice, and I think I'm ready here to move on to the next stage. So what we're going to do is we're going to foil these ribs. So I'm going to show you on one of these, and then we'll get them back on the grill. What I like to do is spread out my foil, and I'm going to double wrap these ribs. And what I like to do is take some brown sugar and spread it out on the foil about the same length as my rib rack. And then I take the ribs and put the meat side down over that brown sugar, and then I just wrap this guy tightly. I start by just bringing that over here and pull that next side up and get that nice and tight on there, and just fold the strap up over the end. And I am going to put that back on the grill meat side down, just like we have here. So I'm going to get the other rack done, and we'll put these back on. And now that I have those wrapped, I'm just going to put both of these back on the grate. And with the traditional 3-2-1 method, you cook these guys at 225, 3 hours in the smoke, 2 hours in the foil, and then 1 hour out of the foil. I typically like to go about 1.5 hours in the foil, because sometimes 2 hours in the foil is just a little too much. So we'll be back in about 1.5 hours to have a look at these. We've been going another 1.5 hours here, so what I want to do now is get these guys back off the grill. I'm going to take them out of the foil, and then we're going to bring them right back here to the grill. I'm going to give you a look here at what this guy looks like in the foil. You can see how these bones are pulling back, and this guy's really getting nice and tender. So let's get these back on the grill. So I've got both of these guys back on the grill, and we're going to have about 1 hour, maybe 45 minutes to 1 hour to go. And when I think I've got about 1/2 hour to go, we're going to come back and put some sauce on these. So what I'm looking for basically is going to be probe tenderness here in the thick part of this meat. and I'll just use a temperature probe. You know, we're really almost there. We're not far from it. So I'm actually not going to let these go that much longer, maybe about 30 or 45 minutes. So we'll come back shortly and sauce these. Okay, these things are looking really amazing here. They're about done. So I'm going to sauce these guys, and I'm using the Atlanta Grill Company sweet sauce today. This is one of my favorite sweet barbecue sauces. So what I do is just dump a little bit of that on there and use a basting brush to spread it out kind of evenly across the top of these rib racks. I don't put a whole lot on there, just enough to get me a nice good even coat like that. And I'm going to do that on both of these racks. And we're going to let these go on here for about another 20 or 30 minutes, just really long enough to let this sauce set up. And then we're going to come back and pull those off. Alright folks, these guys are ready. I want you to have a look at that. Those racks look amazing. So I'm going to pull one of these off here, and we're going to take a little closer look at it. Okay, I'm just going to take one of these out of the middle here. We'll get down in here and have a nice look at one of these. These things are beautiful. I'm a little too close to the bone over there, so you to have a look. Does that just not look amazing? That's a really nice looking rib. I'm gonna have a taste of it. Man, that is delicious. Guys, if you've never cooked full pork spare ribs, cut them down to the St. Louis cut. You got to give it a try. You throw these guys on the grill. There's a lot of philosophy on timing. Some people like to do the 3-2-1 method. I typically find that the 3-2-1 method produces ribs that are a little too tender. I've got no problem with putting fall off the bone ribs on the dinner table. The only problem I have with fall off the bone ribs is sometimes they like to fall apart when you're trying to get them off the grill. But at any rate, they're delicious. Nobody at your dinner table is going to complain about your ribs being too tender. So give these guys a try. Let me know what you think. Until next time, this is John Setzler with Atlanta Grill Company.